Hey guys, welcome back to Aurelia, to episode 9. In the straw poll that I have posted after the episode 8, after the last one, you guys chose that I should do the ship lift or the ship elevator, however you might call it. So that's exactly what this episode is going to be about. I have chosen this side of the dam for it. It's the one next to the industrial zone, and as you can see, there's not that many things in it, but we're going to do some modifications. So let's get right into it. So at first, I was not exactly sure how to do this. I was actually not sure at all how to do any kind of locks. I think I even answered some of your comments for the dam video that it's impossible to do locks in this game and there's just no way to do it. Then I kind of started slowly figuring out how we could maybe do it, because the biggest issue in this game are the water physics and the inability of water to basically be stopped by any kind of structure that's relatively thin, right? So you kind of need to build like a big structure or big like an earth wall to stop water flow. So obviously, if you want to do some kind of a gate for a lock, then you're kind of out of luck. You can't do it. So I kind of did something a bit different, and I chose the ship lift or ship elevator approach, which is actually kind of more easy to do, but using some simple tricks in this game that I'm going to talk about later when we get to it. Now, it's kind of important to note that I draw some inspiration, actually a lot of inspiration, from a real life concept. I'm going to post a video down in the description of today's video. I'm going to post a link to that video where basically this real life concept of a ship lift is shown for like a kind of a relatively small-ish dam which is located in the Czech Republic, and the officials are kind of planning to build a ship lift for that particular dam as well. The commentary for that video is in Czech, but it's not really important. The important part are obviously the visuals, the visualizations of the ship lift they are trying to propose. And like I said, I definitely draw a lot of inspiration from it. So what's going on over here? First, on the upper side of the dam, we are building very, very simple locks. Now, I just said that it's kind of impossible to build a lock in this game for ships. But this one is actually going to have visually the same level, same water level on all sides, right? So in the real life concept, this is actually used only for like a really, really tiny changes in the levels for the ships based on the water level of the dam, right? So if, for example, the dam needs to be emptied, then obviously the lock is going to make the ships go higher into the like inner stage between the elevator and this lock. So right now, let's say that we are having a situation when the water level in the dam is exactly the same as the water level in the inner stage of the passage, right? So that's kind of like a little trick, little excuse, I suppose, that we can do here. As you can see, I'm doing a lot of procedural objects, and that's kind of the common theme for this video. I remember that I think it was episode 7 or 6, I'm not exactly sure, and I actually, the Plaza videos, I was saying that I'm using a lot of procedural objects there. Well, in this video, I'm going to use a lot more, so definitely I'm going like a full 3D editor mode in this game in today's episode, definitely. Unfortunately, what I'm doing in here, the locks in here, and even the elevator later, it's going to be just like a decoration, a static thing. Unfortunately, it's not really working for ships, but there's no way to really make it work, that would be probably asking a bit too much. So what kind of ships are going to go through here? Usually some kind of small river cargo ships, but probably mostly like passenger boats, like smaller passenger boats. I definitely don't want this to be for huge ships like the ship lifts you might see with the Three Gorges, for example. It has a huge ship lift, but that's for much larger ships than these. But these locks and the elevator later is just going to be for this small river ships like we could have seen there. So while I was explaining kind of the principle, we almost finished this portion of the dam. It's not really going to be that detailed. It's going to be detailed enough, kind of, to be what it needs to be. And these arrows, by the way, are looking really, really good. I think these, the cross red marks and the green arrows, are probably for some highways that I downloaded in here and just use procedural objects again. That's probably not a surprise at this point, to kind of make them, big enough. So above the, also, by the way, the lock gates, since the locks, these particular ones, are going to sometimes bring the ships higher or lower if they are going with the same direction based on the water level in the dam. I didn't really want to build the usual lock gates that are kind of angled, made from two pieces and angled towards the higher water level, right? So I decided to go with this type of the gate, which is, believe it or not, actually called the guillotine gate lock, or gate, however you call it. And it kind of looks like the infamous execution machine. So it's exactly called that, apparently. Now it's much easier to do it. Obviously, it's much easier to do this particular kind of gate because you can only build it with like one piece. But you also need to build some kind of a structure around it. Obviously, some kind of a like a concrete, in this case, like a holder, I suppose. That's obviously going to hold the gate when it's raised. So that's exactly what I did here, using the highway pillars, actually, because it's a perfect shape for it already. And then I put some kind of a place on top of these using the asphalt, but I'll later put some decals on there, which is probably going to be some kind of a control things that are probably going to be used for, or the place on the top of those gates is probably going to be some kind of a control machinery in there. Now I also put like a little viewing gallery. That's the place where I was putting the glass fence with the stairs from the road. Maybe some tourists would like to see ships go into the locks. Maybe, I'm not sure. But the entire dam is definitely like a technical attraction for tourists, maybe, or tourists who want to see some technical stuff. All right, so we are now moving towards probably the main highlight of this video, which is the actual elevator. So what is this thing about? I actually copied kind of very closely the real-life example that I was talking about, that I'm going to link in the video description. So the ship elevator basically consists of like a tub, like a bathtub kind of, which is obviously made from steel, which is what I'm doing right here. And it's the kind of moving part of the entire elevator that goes up and down. Now it's made from steel, usually, probably, or I don't know. We are in the future. It probably could be some different, high strength metal, whatever. And it kind of needs to be looking like it's made from steel. So I decided, and again, it's actually how the bathtub. Again, I'm going to be calling it the bathtub, okay? How it's actually looking with the real life example that I was talking about. And it has this like a truss beam on the side. It's actually black as well. And I decided to do it with the letter N because it's perfect. It's already the shape that I needed. And then I'm just using all these custom procedural object cubes in here to just basically model the entire thing from scratch. Obviously using the ship in there to kind of get the dimensions that I need to do. So as you can see, we are almost done with it, and I'm just building it not exactly in place. I will later be just selecting it and moving it around. You will actually see some very interesting cinematics with this at the end of the words video. So stay tuned for that, I suppose. But right now we are done. We are done with the bathtub, right? I just copied the gate in here. And this is kind of where the magic happens. Look, this is exactly what made this entire elevator possible. And actually, first, these are the clipping networks. I think they are not very, very old in the workshop. They have been posted in the workshop just recently. And when I first saw them, I thought, yes, this might be the way to actually build something creative with the water, how water works, because we are technically not breaking the terrain around the canal. We are just making it disappear. that's basically the same thing. I mean, from the watcher's point of view, I suppose. So that's exactly what I did here, and this allowed me to basically cut the terrain around the canal at that portion where I needed to, be invisible, because there's going to be the gate and obviously the bathtub for the ships. Now in here I wanted to create with that concrete patch some kind of like an angled surface on which the bathtub is going to go up and down. This is definitely not the steepest elevator or ship elevator that you could have seen in real life, for example. It's definitely not very steep. And as you can see, it actually goes kind of a long way towards the river, the lower portion of the river below the dam. Now in here, I used the industrial crane because I only wanted to take away the wheels, or I don't know how you would call them, the underside of the crane, and it fits really, really nicely, as you can see here. I'm just going to copy paste it to the opposite side as well, so we can have like 4 of them or 2 pairs like that, and just position them a bit better so it makes a bit more sense how they are positioned underneath the entire structure. Now, kind of a problem that I had during the entire construction of this is that if you are, well, usually you are tempted, if you are going to use procedural objects, to just stretch like huge portions of, let's say, concrete walls, or in my case, these concrete surfaces, to just build everything with one object, right? That's kind of bad, because if you're going to zoom in, and you could have already seen that in multiple cases, the object is going to disappear if the center of mass, kind of the object is going to move from the view that you are looking at. So it's much better to use smaller objects. That's exactly what I was doing right there. I was just replacing the how do you call it, the foundation of the elevator with multiple objects like this. Now, this kind of took me a long time. I was not exactly sure how to do all these retaining walls around the entire elevator, so it was a lot of trial and error. I'm putting these invisible networks in here back so that I can already kind of finalize this place. So obviously then the invisible networks are, completely clipping through the texture of the terrain. So you need to put something in there so that you don't, see the emptiness below the map. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. So on the sides, there's going to be some concrete walls. Not exactly these. I'm going to actually change it. And also, this is something that happened quite a lot. And I had to kind of iterate between, not cutting that much terrain around the canal and cutting enough so that I could, kind of work around this place. So that's exactly actually the example of the problems that you are facing if you're going to do some different terrain heights, especially like below terrain heights compared to the terrain height of the top of the canal. So canals in this way only work, or nicely work, if you are doing terrain changes above the canal, right? Otherwise you can get some weird water spills around. And that's exactly why these clipping networks are, in here and are very, very handy. So as the surface in here, I chose the gravel, and I did not use the surface painter because obviously there is no surface. So I had to use the procedural objects again because it's angled. I couldn't just have it as props. Now this is also something that's kind of almost like it was with the real life example. Again, I'm mentioning it again, that you kind of have like a concrete wall in the river below, which is going to act maybe as some kind of a stopping bar maybe for the bathtub as it's being lowered. Now it needs to be the exit point for the bathtub needs to be kind of wide, much wider than the tub itself, because obviously it depends, the final position of it depends on the water level below the dam. And again, that might change based on, how much water is going through the dam. And that's obviously something that the dam operators are, in control of. So they can definitely change it. Obviously, there are some limitations. If their water level is too low, then the elevator is not operational. That's kind of clear. I suppose that's how it works in real life as well. These elevators obviously need to have some particular conditions for their operation. But that's probably, common even with locks as well. So we're actually almost finished with the entire place. I'm going to just put a lot of these buildings around because, you know, just building the elevator is not enough. We need to kind of decorate the place, make it fit into the area, into the industrial, area around this place. So just the random props, really. I thought that maybe some kind of like a little, like a guardhouses or booths where some, I don't know, controllers could be sitting in. So I just put it right next to the lower entrance to the elevator in here. It could probably be some kind of a, maybe like a guy who would be navigating the ship, remotely or something, because we are in the future anyway. And putting a lot of these gravel surfaces on the retaining walls because they are kind of really wide, and I don't really like that too much. So, and actually, even if you look at the real life locks, for example, the Panama Canal as well, you don't really see concrete on the surface that much. You have obviously the retaining walls and the canal walls and all that, but on the surface the top parts are actually not that wide. You only have the like rails on there for the guiding trains, whatever you call them. But in City Skylines, when you build a quay, for example, it's really wide. But I don't know, sometimes it looks good, sometimes it does not, just like in this case. Now, in here I'm not sure if these are the railroad crossings made by Ronix. I think they are. I'm basically using them to build a rail. To build a rail for the tub. Just building like a single rail for each wheel base, I suppose you could call it. So 4 of them in total, but 2 of them are obviously part of one procedural object. So again, putting them to the same curvature as the concrete base, which is not exactly easy because obviously it's angled, it's not on a flat surface. And then you obviously need to make them connect nicely all the way down to the water. Now on this other side, just putting some really random industrial buildings in here, kind of make them clip together to create something a bit more interesting, I suppose. And some kind of office buildings as well, maybe some like I don't know, some kind of a shipping operator building again, maybe. Who knows? And like I said, some final detailing when it comes to these walls in here. I actually decided to go with like full procedural objects in. Now this is something interesting. I'm actually using these tram rails that I prepared in the asset editor, in the road editor. And I basically made them so that there's only the rail, right? And in here I'm using them as some sort of a like a cable, like a steel cable, probably steel cable, that would be just responsible for the movement of the tub. Now the real life thing works with a counterweight. There's basically like a big hole in the ground where the counterweight is going up and down. Obviously if the elevator goes down, then the counterweight goes up. And the real life thing actually doesn't show any cables connected to the tub, but I assume that there must be something like that in there. So I just made them on the surface, basically, or actually above the surface, visible, connected to the tub above the concrete base. So it's just looking a bit more interesting, I suppose. Now the real life thing also has this like a ship tunnel. It's not really necessary in this place, but it looks nice. And on top of it, I just put some kind of a industrial, like a light storage area, something like that. I'm later going to detail in some like trailers and trucks and stuff like that. So it should be looking a bit more interesting. More industrial on office buildings in here, as you can see. And I'm not even showing it in here because it was kind of long, but I just put a lot of decals everywhere to kind of make these surfaces a bit more interesting. Anyway, guys, we are coming towards the end. I'm just doing some final detailing in here, just putting some of these concrete walls and obviously trees. Very important. We still have the cinematics in front of us, where I actually prepared a little demonstration of the lift's operation using some editing magic. This is definitely one of the bigger projects I ever did. I think it turned out looking great. I hope you guys like it too. If you liked today's video, leave a like and share it if you want. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I thank you guys for watching, take care, and goodbye.